John here with Pirates Garage. Welcome back. It's been 7 months since I've made a video. But anyways, so I'll give you guys a real quick rundown of what's been going on. Changed an engine in a 2005 F-150. Took a crate engine, swapped out the old engine with the new engine, put it together. And then it went out, and the transmission and the motor must not have been perfectly seated together, and it broke the flex plate. So the owner of the truck took it to another garage and they replaced the flex plate because I was already on to the next project and didn't have time. I was working on a 2004, I believe, Mustang that has a 95 SN95 GT engine in it. Worked on it, got a bunch of the little hiccups fixed, had a bunch of vacuum leaks and such. That car's gone. Hopefully it'll be back in the near future. He wants to upgrade a handful of things, so that'll be back, and we'll make sure we record that and get that video up, and, with the permission of the owner. But got the 240 back in here. Later on it's winter time, so later on this winter, once I get the Maverick situated and mobile, then the 240 will be getting tore down, pulling the engine, pulling the transmission again, gutting it, prepping it for paint. We're going to be repainting it, and then it's going to get much needed love because it needs it. It hasn't been worked on in a long time. Still runs, drives, good car, just needs tweaks. A lot of things upgraded on it. You probably can't tell, but behind me the whole bench is a mess. I've been working on the Maverick nonstop that has the SR20 in it. I figured out the drive shaft situation. I was able to use the factory Ford Maverick drive shaft and rear universal and flange. The front flange, I had to order the front yoke for the Nissan. And when you buy those Nissan or front nose piece, this universal part is actually just a standard universal, which is I think like 301. I don't have the box on here, but it's the exact same universal setup as what was on the Maverick originally. So it was awesome. It just bolted in. I'm about an inch shorter than where I feel where I really want it. But for just moving it around and driving around, as long as I don't like try to launch it or something, I should be fine until I get an actual one piece made for it. But for now, drive shaft's in, transmission's hooked up. I had to get all new, brand new bell housing bolts because I couldn't find the original ones. So I still have to put those in, which we'll record that because I'll crawl underneath the car and get all that stuff figured out. So the Ford Maverick back in 1970 had a carburetor. So if you know anything about cars, carburetors are low pressure fuel systems and they do not have a return. So essentially what that means, if you have a carbureted car and the fuel pump's on the side of the engine that's pumping, it pumps about 5-ish pounds to the carburetor. It doesn't care. As long as that engine's running, it'll just keep pumping gas and you're just throwing the gas in the wind. So if that car's not running and it's turning over, it's just taking gas and just chucking it into the carburetor and you're on your own. Newer systems, like what's on the Nissan SR20 that I put in it, is a return system. So it's a high pressure fuel system which requires 40, I think it's 42 or 45 pounds of pressure on the fuel rail, which is on all newer cars. So you have a fuel rail. One end is the 45 pounds from the fuel tank comes in and goes into it, and then it distributes that across your fuel injectors. At the end of that fuel rail is a fuel pressure regulator. So what that thing does is, based off of vacuum, it keeps 45 pounds, we'll say 42, 45, whatever. It keeps that set pressure in that rail. So what happens is, if that pressure goes above that, it opens up that fuel pressure regulator and it allows the excess pressure of fuel to go back, and it goes back into the tank. That's just how newer fuel systems work. So I had to run all new fuel line, which I found this neat. It is actually standard fuel line, like regular fuel line, but it has the nylon covering on it. I don't know if you can see it or not. And I found this the size that I need for the car, so I ran brand new of this return and fuel. So I eliminated the hard line in the car. It's still there, but I'm not using it. It's on the driver's side. I had to run all my fuel lines on the passenger side. So underneath the car, through the tunnel and stuff, I have all the fuel lines run to the back to the tank. The factory fuel tank does not have, it only has one port on it, and that's the old style, so it was just one line. So I had to put a return. So the returns are basically non-pressure. They have a little bit of pressure, but nothing worthwhile. So I took the factory tank out because it looks almost brand new. I took it out, drilled a hole in the top of it, and put a marine fitting in it. So the fuel line, the return line, can go back in and drop into the top of the tank, which is essentially how newer fuel systems work technically. Now keep in mind, I'm basing this off of like factory fuel systems. I'm not talking like race cars or all that stuff, which have like all these elaborate fuel systems and such. But for my situation, this is what I'm running for now. If we up the horsepower and get moving up along, then I may get a legit fuel cell with the foam and stuff in it, so it's just sloshing and stuff. But for now, it'll work for my instance. So fuel system's in the car. I don't know if you guys are on my Instagram or not. You probably saw my startup video. The car does start and run on its own. So basically the way that it works is I have a race car style rocker switches. I have 3 of them, and then a push button for push start. So we got fuel pump, ECU, and main power are the 3, and then the push start for the starting of the car. So when I get ready here, that whole system we'll get all the wiring cleaned up, which I'll do that video. I'll get it all cleaned up. I want to get it mounted. I actually bought a piece of plexiglass because it's non-conductive to put all my electronics on it, so I can mount it up under the dash, so that way the car's electrical system is completely self-contained. So I can pull this motor transmission out with the harness I have, I can take it out and set it out in the ground, hook the wires up to the battery, and start the car on the ground. So there's no dependence on the car. With that being said, the car still has brake lights, headlights, interior dash, and all that stuff. So the wiring's still out underneath the hood that used to connect to the old solenoid, which is what used to start the old carbureted cars. I will have to run a wire from there back into the car, which is fine because I already have wires running around. Back into the car and hook onto my fuse box I have. I have an aftermarket fuse panel for my rocker switches. I can run it back into it, so that way, and then I could run it to a solenoid, and the solenoid will run off of the ignition switch in the car. So you'll have to turn the key on in the car, which will in turn kick the power on to all my relays. And then once you do that, then you'll be allowed to actually flip the switches and start the car. I want to do this so that way I don't have to mess with the wiring in the car at all. So I'm still using the factory 1970 wiring for the tail lights, the headlights, like I said, all the dash lights, the interior lights. Everything body is self-contained based off the ignition switch. And as far as the drivetrain goes, it is self-contained off of the flip switches. Like I said, I'll go down through all this later on. I'll do a couple more videos. We'll sit down. I'll draw the blueprints up of what I've done. And I'll get the video up of me fixing the dash and cleaning up all my wiring and stuff. Just so you guys understand. But today I got the clutch pedal. So my car was an automatic. I had to find somebody online that had a Maverick that had the clutch pedals in it. Luckily somebody was able to get me the clutch pedal and brake pedal from a standard Ford Maverick. And what's nice is back in the day, those pedals bolt to the same bracket. So if you have an automatic or a manual, the bracket that it bolts to is the exact same. So if you go to switch those over, all you need is the pedals, and then there's a long pivot or pinion that goes across it, and there's a spring for the clutch. And the clutch pedal has like a little tab that spring hooks on. If you have those three pieces, you can put the clutch pedal and brake pedal in any Maverick without changing the bracket that holds the steering column in. So I've done that. Those pedals are in. I have drilled the hole in the firewall for my new, which I don't have it here. I have to get, like I said, I'll get videos of all this stuff. I am using a 240SX clutch master cylinder for hydraulic. Because the Maverick came manual, they have the center punch hole in the firewall for the cable, because back in then they didn't have hydraulic clutches, they were cable driven clutches. So there's a template, like a dimple into the firewall where the factory would have drilled that out to put the rubber grommet with the cable through it for the old style cable system for the clutch. I'm using hydraulic. So I had to drill the hole, which is an 1 5/8". Yeah, 1 5/8 hole saw. Once I put a center punch, I drilled this through it, and then there's 2 holes. It looks like this. I made a template. So you drill the hole, then you drill those 2 bolt holes, and I made a plate that goes on the inside of the firewall. So I've plate I made like this that goes on the inside. Then you have the firewall with these holes drilled in it, and then the clutch master cylinder will go from the outside up into here, and then it'll go through. And then what you do is when you put the bolts through, it pinches the firewall, which strengthens this up, or strengthens the clutch master cylinder up. That's what I did today. Now, hiccups that I have with that so far. So if you're looking at the clutch pedal, so the clutch pedal sitting here, the rod that connects to the master cylinder, which looks like a U shape, it usually goes over this, and a pin goes through it, and that when you push the pedal, it pushes that rod in and out. My problem is if this is the pedal, it is about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch toward the steering column is where my little U clamp from the clutch master. So what my game plan is for now is I'm going to drill a hole through the pedal bracket, and I'm going to put a stud on it, basically a bolt. I'll run a bolt the whole way through that is long enough to catch the rod for the clutch, and then I will put spacers or nuts on it to keep it to where it needs to be straight. So that way, this is the pedal and this is that U joint. There'll be a bolt that goes the whole way through, which I don't have a bolt laying here. So it'll be like out here, like on a stud. So whenever you push it, it'll pivot on that stud. That's the game plan. That's my thought process at the moment. I'll do it. My next video will probably be on how I figure that out and how I drill it and all that stuff. It'll probably be faster for me to pull the pedal back out and drill the hole out here in the ground, so that way I know everything fits right, and then put it all back in. That's probably the safest way of doing it. A little more time consuming, but safest way. So once I get it figured out and get it in, I'll have to run the hard lines from the clutch master down to the transmission to the clutch slave, which is bolted to the side of the transmission. And I ordered, I don't have the parts line here. I have the rubber line from the 240 that connects from the clutch slave to the hard line that it connects to. On the 240, there is a block down there that has like a U bend in it with the hard lines, and that's meant to give your pedal like a little more give. That's what that rubber line expands. It gives you more give in your pedal. A lot of the 240 guys get rid of that. Like on my 240, I have a steel braided brake line that goes from the clutch master to the clutch slave, and there's no rubber in it. So when you push my pedal in, it's all pedal. There's no give, there's no play. It just clutch in, clutch out. There's no extra fluff. But with this car, I kind of want to do it kind of right. So I want to run the hard line down, put the little bracket in, and then put the rubber line to the clutch slave, just so it's right and it works. So once that's done, in theory, I should be able to start the car up. I have it up off the ground right now, all 4 wheels. I should be able to start it up, make sure there's fluid in the transmission, and I should be able to go through the gears and the wheels should turn. That'll let me know if there's anything out of whack as far as like the drive shaft being at too far of an angle or whatnot. But then that should make the car mobile. I should be able to move it if push comes to shove under its own power instead of by hand. As far as the engine goes, I got a handful of wiring to extend and to clean up. I have the intercooler mounted in the front grille, which, like I said, we'll do a video on all that stuff. I have an intercooler in the front. I still have to drill the holes in the sides for the piping to go through the front core support, radiator support, to go to the turbo on one side and to the throttle body on the other. I'll have to measure all that up and get I'm going to do it all as stainless, and I'll make it all one solid pipe so there's less joints and less problems to have. Radiator, I still have to order an SR radiator. They are expensive. I do not know why, but I need to save up and get one. Once I have the radiator in and fluid in the engine and the intercooler in, I have to hook the MAF up. That's the wiring I have to extend to the MAF, master flow sensor. Once I do that, the cars basically can be driven. I have to figure out the steering. I plan on putting a steering rack in it instead of the old style pinion or Pitman arm style steering in it. The problem I have is the way the old style steering is. It's like a long bar and a short bar, and when you go left or right, it goes down one way and up the other. Well, when it comes up, it's hitting the oil pan. I probably could drive the car. It wouldn't be safe. I couldn't make any like real sharp turns one way, but I can go the other way. I don't feel comfortable with that, so I will make up a rack. I'll have to measure it. I have a parts car outside that is close, so if I can adapt it and make it work, great. Front suspension needs to be fixed yet. I need to plate the inner strut tires so they're away from the intake side and the turbo side. And as far as the turbo goes, I'm not running a full exhaust. I'm just going to run a 3-inch dump tube down below the car and out the side. It's a 70. I don't even need to actually have it inspected. Well, it has to be inspected. It doesn't have to comply to a lot of the emissions and such in our state. So with it being a 70, I should be able to just put the dump tube in. Don't need any of the smog, don't need any of the catalytic converters or the mufflers, or just for now I might do it that way. More than likely long term, I'll probably more than likely run it the whole way out the back and put an actual muffler on it, just because I'm old and I'm getting tired of loud cars. Even though my 240's 3-inch pipe the whole way back and it's loud. So that's the game plan. I'm hoping if I stay busy and stay focused on the Maverick, I should have it done to the point where it is mobile before Christmas. So got another month and a half, 2 months. It shouldn't be hard with what's left. It's just tedious little odds and ends. The front suspension and the front steering is probably going to be the hardest part and the most complicated. The rest of it I should be able to, if I had all the parts, I could pound it out in 2-3 days by myself. But that's the game plan. Once it's mobile and able to be moved and running, because we plan on going to Carlisle again in the spring, and I'm taking the Maverick with the SR into it to Style and Performance. That's the game plan. So the 240 won't make it this year. It'll make it the following year, because we should have it painted back together and all cleaned up and nice for the following year for Carlisle. Mini Cooper, it's sitting outside. It's legal. It's inspected. It runs. It's fine. It has issues, but it's more tuning issues, and I am limited to the Bytronics ECU or Flash ECU that I'm using. So until I get the money gathered up, it's going to cost me about $1,000 for a different type of ECU. I will more than likely go with Megasquirt or Link. Link is plug and play. Megasquirt is a little bit more in depth, which will save me about $400 to $500, but I think it will give me more of a learning curve than the other one, which I like learning things. So I'll probably more than likely go with Megasquirt once I get the money gathered up. But once it's done, then the Mini will be back on the road and ready to roll again, and we can actually start turning the boost up. The Parts Mini, which is the gray car I have, which I don't know if you guys even know what that is, maybe. I use it to mock up my manifolds, which I make turbo manifolds for the Mini, or the R50. That's the third one I've made. Between it and the fourth one. That's what the Part Mini's for. I just acquired a Ford 360. And I would love to shove that into Parts Mini, which would be a whole different animal. But it'd be neat to put it in the Parts Mini and turn it into a tow vehicle. But I think that may give me more problems, but we'll see. Alright, I've rambled on too much. This is the brief update of what's been going on. I'm going to start making more videos and getting you guys up to date and get you guys rolling. Sorry I've been gone for so long. It's just been... I've been trying to focus on getting the tasks completed and the jobs done because they were paying jobs. YouTube doesn't pay me, so this is just for fun and for you guys. Until I start making money off these videos, this is like on the back burner for me as far as my videos go. Paying customers come first, and if it takes me 8 hours to do a job, when you video it, it takes 3 times that, because you got to stop, you got to move the cameras, you got to get stuff set up, you got to explain what you're doing, you got to do what you're doing. So instead of it being 8 hours, now it's 24 hours. So I'm going to try my best. I'm going to start doing more videos and start getting the, like I said, the nuanced things out of the way. That way you guys can be along with me when I do the ride. I can get you through the way my thinking goes, my mindset, and try to help you guys understand when you work on these projects, the things you don't remember or the things you don't pick up on or you just don't know. Maybe give you a little bit of a different way of thinking about it. But thank you guys for watching. If you watched, hopefully I'll have more videos coming out about every week here. Stay tuned, stick with me, and I'll get these things out as fast as I can.